Well, post-harvest time is always a great time to sit down while things are fresh in your mind, review the growing season, and consider if there's anything you want to change for next year in your farming operation. Good resources to do this might be your yield map, any soil tests or other tests you might have. Maybe you got some pictures, aerial imagery, etc. But I like to say that a good way to evaluate your nitrogen program during the early grain fill period is to look at your cornfield when it starts to dent. Your corn crop will need at least one green leaf per week below the ear for those 4 weeks of grain fill. And you can see in this picture, corn should really die from the top down, not the bottom up. If it's dying from the bottom up, there's an indication that something's going on in that field. Here we have rainfall, total inches, and then precipitation average percentage for the months of May and June for 2024 across Iowa. We all know it was very wet, especially in northern Iowa, but when we think about it, a lot of fall applied anhydrous ammonia, or even winter applied or early spring, February, March applied anhydrous ammonia, we're out there with warmer than normal soil temps, and much of that nitrogen is converted from ammonia to nitrate by the time those rains fell. Likewise, if you used a liquid UAN program, it was also at risk for leaching when all this rain fell across northern Iowa. The late spring soil nitrate test is a good way to evaluate how much nitrogen is still in the soil for the corn crop to use, when you can still get over it to side dress. The critical value is 25 parts per million in early June. And here's some tests that were done in north central Iowa by some Pioneer folks, where you can see we used a lot of different forms of N and a lot of different application techniques. But to me, this study reminds us just how important that the 4 R's are to take into account when managing your nitrogen program. And many of these were below that critical range, as you can see. Here's a study from Reedland, Iowa, looking at nitrogen rate by hybrid by plant population. This study was kind of unique that it wasn't planted till May 19th, and the applied N wasn't put out there until the last half of June. So we avoided most of those heavy rains and subsequent N loss. This was corn following beans with about 20 pounds of residual nitrogen from the year before. It was on a heavy soil type, 398 Tripola soil type. We had 100-day, 105, 110, and 113-day hybrids that we tested at 32,000 plant population and 36,000 plant population. And you can see that the total N rates, we used 3 different rates: 100 pounds total, 150 pounds per acre, and 180 pounds per acre. Here are the results from the 32,000 population. All 4 maturities responded to increasing your nitrogen rate, and on average, we saw a 7% increase from 100 to 150 pounds per acre, and another 6% increase in yield from 150 pounds to 180 pounds. So you can also see, how the individual hybrids responded to N in this test as well. Here's a look at another way to evaluate your nitrogen program at the end of the growing season, the stalk nitrate test. And it's done by taking a portion of that lower stalk when the corn black layers. Here we have 21 cornfields from Clayton, Delaware, and Dubuque counties that were primarily clay soil types. And you can see the vast majority of those did come back deficient, below that 700 part per million value for nitrate nitrogen. The average N rate on all these fields was 247 pounds of applied N, and the average yield was 241 bushel per acre. So you can see that the corn somehow, found enough nitrogen to produce this type of yield. Here are a few more corn stalks a little further west from Blackhawk, Bremer, Butler, Grundy, and Fayette counties. These soil types are, predominantly silt loams, which would probably be a little bit more subject to leaching nitrogen, but you can see here that 82% of the samples below that critical range, 700 parts per million for nitrate nitrogen. On average, all the fields in this data set had 234 pounds of applied nitrogen, and the average yield was 232 bushels per acre. So once again, we had terrific yields with some nitrogen loss in 2024. So in summary, when it comes to managing your nitrogen, here's kind of my advice for you. Begin with a realistic yield goal and adjust that, as the season goes, depending on what Mother Nature does on your farm. Take into account the soil type. CEC times 10 is the maximum pounds of nitrogen that a soil can hold at any one time. So we don't want to get too much nitrogen out there on a lighter soil type. And then organic matter, percent times 20 is number of pounds that can mineralize from the soil. So the heavier the soil, the more N we can get from the soil through mineralization. Consider split applying your nitrogen, so it's not all subject, to one big weather event at any one time. Utilize nitrogen stabilizer, especially when you're putting the corn or the nitrogen out there ahead of when the corn crop needs it. And then use variable rate technology to apply the nitrogen. You can adjust it based on yield goal or by soil type. But I guess we wish you the best in managing your nitrogen program on your farm from all of us at Pioneer. And good luck in everything you do in the future. Thank you.
That concludes this Pioneer Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.